Hey, good evening. Welcome to Pure True, a 21-day self-coaching journey. You'd think by now I'd know the name of this coaching challenge, and yet here we are. Welcome to True. Welcome to day 5. Today we're going to be looking at spiritual life. If you've been tuning in to these sessions, you know the format by now. Grab a notepad, get ready for some live coaching. If you're here live, let me know, put it in the chat, let me know that you're here so I can give you a shout back. And yeah, get ready for some really powerful coaching. Tonight's a really special one for me. And we're looking at spiritual life. Now, for those of you that are like, hang on a minute, Miles, I don't do all that woo-woo shit. Well, look, if you know me by now, if you're on my social media platform, you'll know I love a bit of woo-woo. But I am a believer that spirituality is there and it's within you, whether you like it or not. Whether you call it God, intuition, listening to your heart, that's what I believe spirituality is. I think it's a connection to an inner voice, a deep knowing. And I believe anybody that thinks that is not real. Somebody recently, when they talked about spirituality, said for anybody who doesn't believe in spirituality or doesn't think they're spiritual, ask them if they believe it's possible to make a phone call to the other side of the world and see a family member without that device being connected to any wire or plug in the wall device. Whether it's wireless technology, whether it's your Bluetooth headphones that you listen to your music through, and all of a sudden you're listening to music online within seconds, that is an invisible force, and spirituality is no different. Last couple of years, my spirituality has changed. I grew up as a kid that went to church, and for me, I thought spirituality was religion and religion was spirituality, and then it kind of got forced down my throat at school. So I kind of turned off the spiritual part of me because I didn't like the way that it was put across. And then around April 2020, if you were with me, we all know what was happening around that time. COVID had started, the pandemic had started. And where we live, there are some beautiful fields just behind our house. And I was ultimately making myself go out for regular walks, some with Sati, some without. But the ones that I was going by myself, I was literally forcing myself out of the house because I knew that any time in the house in those early days of the pandemic, I was worried, I was scared, I was fearful, and I didn't know what I was going to do. Maybe you can relate. And I'll never forget one of the days going for a walk in one of these fields. And just to paint a picture for you, the fields near where we live, if you've ever seen the movie Gladiator, if you haven't, there's a scene at the end of the movie where Russell Crowe has died in battle. And they show this scene which is representative of heaven. And his wife and child were killed by the Romans years before. And the whole movie is about him getting his revenge, right? I will get my vengeance. And he does. And he honorably dies at the end of the movie. And then he is in heaven. And he's in this beautiful field that they're using to represent heaven. And coming down this lane is his wife and child. And he's walking through this field and there's this beautiful flowers and he's brushing his hands through it. Anyway, the reason I tell you all that is because the fields near where we live at this point in April were like that, beautiful. And they've got great music on. This particular day, I just felt better and I just felt more positive. I found myself in this field standing with this sunlight just basking on my face the way that these lights are in the studio. And I just stood there and I just went, I have no idea why this happened. Still to this day, I do know now, but at the time I didn't know why it happened. But I just stood there and I just found myself going, hey, God, haven't really talked to you for a long time. Don't even know if you're listening, but And then I just went into this dialogue about asking for guidance and asking for support, and how I know I've switched off the spiritual part of me and I want to waken that up, and, you know, show me how I can serve people, help people, show me how I can thrive in this challenging period so that I can then thrive in any. Anyway, I went in this long conversation, I won't bore you with the details. And it moved me. I had goosebumps. And then I made a conscious decision that I would start doing that every day. And so for every day for several months, I would run to this part of this field and I would stand and have this chat with God. And now it's winter at the time of doing these videos. So it tends to be on a drive to the gym at 5 a.m. that I do it. It's not the same, but hey, what can you do, right? You can tune into the divine whenever you want. And the reason I tell you that story, because you may be hearing that going, I'm not religious, I'm not into God, blah, 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 is that it doesn't actually, I don't believe that God has to be a manifestation that is a man with a beard in a white gown, right? I don't buy into that. I'm not Christian per se. I don't like the way that religion can feel a little bit like pick a football team. Like, I don't like that. Are you Sikh? Are you Christian? Are you Hindu? Kind of don't like the whole thing. Are you Man United or are you Chelsea? Kind of don't like that. For me, spirituality in its purest form is about the ability to kind of like the way when you're a kid, you could hold a cup to the table or to the ground and you could hear things that you wouldn't hear with the naked ear. For me, that's what spirituality is. It's about being able to listen to the voice inside of you that whispers and very rarely shouts. So in this session tonight, I want to coach you to help you to listen to that voice inside of you that whispers, that never really shouts. So I'm going to bring up some slides. If you've attended one of these sessions before, you kind of know the format by now. The questions that we use in these sessions are pretty much the same every time, but just same but different. That is the power of coaching. This isn't a mentoring session, it's a coaching session. So what I'd like for you to do, grab a notepad and be prepared for some coaching on your spiritual part of you. So the first question I want to ask you, or the first statement I want to present to you, is my ideal spiritual self looks and feels like. What does your ideal spiritual self look and feel like? Is it you're listening more to intuition? Is it you're trusting your gut more? Is it you make a decision and you follow through on that decision because you know it's right for you and you don't change your mind back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? Is it you say no more to other people? You don't say yes to everyone. What is it for you? Being your ideal spiritual self. Maybe it's more inner peace, feeling more grounded, more centered. What does that look and feel like? In your notepad, just make some notes. Those of you that are ahead, I'll present the second question / statement. So this ideal spiritual version of you, now that you have that in mind, for this to become a reality this year, what would you have to start doing? Or what would you have to start being? For me, it was start actively, openly speaking to God. Like every morning now, I speak to God. Like I just say, hey, God. And I choose the word God because it just feels easy. I feel you could choose any word. You could sit and put your hand on your heart and say, hey, inner voice, if you're listening, guide me today. Whatever it is for you. Like, I find meditation helps. It helps to make me coherent and grounded. I find yoga helps as well, really helps to create internal coherence and balance. So for this spiritual self for you to manifest, what would you have to start doing? And there should be a slide there that says for this to become a reality this year, what would you have to stop doing? So I'll follow on with that. For this to become a reality, this ideal spiritual self, what would you have to stop doing? For me, one of the things I had to stop doing is I had to stop spending so much time on social media. During the pandemic, especially the early stages, there was a lot of fear, wasn't there, on social media. Had to make a conscious decision to stop being on social media. I literally switched it off. Other than posting positive content on, I wasn't consuming any social media. I would check the news once a day for a couple of minutes, just so that I was current and not naive to not know what was going on during COVID-19. But other than that, I just got in my lane, focused on what I needed to do to be the best version of me in that period. So for this to be a reality for you this year, what would you have to stop doing? Next, the long-term consequences of not prioritizing my spiritual self are. What are the long-term consequences of not prioritizing your spiritual self? When I had my spiritual self switched off, I was finding myself making a decision, backtracking on that decision. I'd say one thing and then I'd do another. I was completely incongruent. I wasn't coherent. My head wanted one thing, my heart wanted another, and I had overwhelm and bags of inner conflict. Then when I started to have conversation with God, started to meditate, started to do yoga, all of a sudden I seemed to become more peaceful, more coherent. So the long-term consequence, if I'd have carried on down that road, wouldn't have been good. What are the long-term consequences for you of not prioritizing that area? Next, a person or persons that already have my desired spiritual results that I could ask for help include: who do you already know who you have a perception has a level of congruence, coherence, is spiritually open, a person that you perceive to have deep, genuine, heartfelt inner peace? Maybe that brings someone to mind. Or who is someone that you could go to? Maybe it's a social media person. You know, I remember years ago, first getting into personal development, it was very much the kind of motivational world of Tony Robbins, and then it eventually transitioned into, I remember a period listening to a lot of Wayne Dyer. If you've never heard of Wayne Dyer's work, me and my wife especially listens to a lot of Sadhguru. So you might go, well, I don't have anyone in my life. Okay, well, what about someone that is like somebody on YouTube who has videos that you could listen to? Three words that would define me at my absolute best when it comes to my spiritual self. So think about the spiritual part of you. What would be three words that would define you at your absolute best in this area? Maybe you want to be more peaceful. Maybe it's you want to be calm, balanced, coherent, integrity. I'm just throwing out words that might trigger your thinking. With me living my 3 words in this area, life will be better in the following ways. So think about those 3 words that you just wrote down. How will your life be better with you living into those 3 words each day? When I consciously made a decision to reconnect, plug into the spiritual part of me, especially back in March, end of March 2020, I've been a lot calmer. Things that would have previously have really stressed me out, just general life stuff, hasn't had the created the emotional charge upon me that it would have just a few years ago. And I put that down to the spiritual work. It's positively impacted my marriage because I'm calmer. I can have a stressful, just today with this, we've had some stressful business situations that a few years ago, even just a couple of years ago, would have really affected my day. I'd have really let them affect my day. Today, they've not affected me at all, and that is ultimately down to conversations with God, meditation, yoga, positively affecting my family. What are 3, with you living these words, what are some ways that your life will be better? A simple habit that would help me to live into my 3 words each day is, what is a simple habit? Really common sense, practical habit that could help you live into your 3 words each day. Maybe it's just a reminder in your phone to meditate, reminder in your phone to talk to God, reminder in your phone to do yoga, reminder in your phone to write down what you're grateful for. What is a simple habit that could help you grow in this spiritual part of you? And finally, and this may already have been answered by the last question, a small step that I will take today towards achieving my ideal result in this area this year is, what's a small step that you could take? Okay, as always, those of you that I see that are putting comments in the chat already, well done. Those of you that haven't, here's what I'd like for you to do. So that I can hold you accountable in each of these 21 areas, I'm your coach for the next 21 days. I'd like for you to put what it is that you're committed to doing in the comments box below so that I can see it and I can hold you accountable to making sure that you do that over the next 21 days. So if you haven't already, put your action that you're committed to doing in the comments box below now. Do that now so that I know and everybody else that's watching knows what you're committed to doing. And therefore, everybody on this broadcast can help each other. So if you see someone else's comment, give them some encouragement, give them some like, give them some hearts, comment and say, I've got your back, whatever it is. Do something to also comment on others, because when you not only put your own actions out for accountability, but you help others with theirs, you get a double win because you get to grow and you get to contribute to the lives of others as well. That's it. Day 5 is over. I hope you've enjoyed tonight. Make sure you put your action in the comments box, and I will see you back here tomorrow night, 6 p.m. UK time for day number 6. Have a good evening.